Hey guys, welcome to the Professional Development Podcast. Today is Wednesday, December 29th. This is episode number 64. And today we are talking about audit and reflection. Now that we're coming up on the end of the year, it's a good time to think about what you've accomplished in the past year. Think about what you've accomplished in the past 3 to 5 years. And then more importantly, where you want to be going forward. So we're just talking about auditing in general, auditing your circle, auditing what you've done. But before we get into that, we do have a guest on today, and that's Dan's buddy Blake.
He's a minority guest. I mean, he's not Googleable.
Minority? I'm a white guy.
I mean, yeah, not minority that way, but just, you're not as important as everybody else.
Also,
yeah, sure.
Also another side piece. Dan and Blake are both drunk. They had an early lunch today. Decided to come
So
in.
what's interesting is
Dan's
we went out to
fault.
lunch. Look, it's a weird week. It's between December 25th and January 1st, and we have
Fucking mail it
clients.
in. Mail it in. Fucking.
A separation season. Okay, now is the time to separate yourself from the competition, and we figured we would separate ourselves from the drinking competition. And
Can't
we
be
went out to
slacking.
lunch today. We did a couple shots, and then we decided, you know what, we're gonna end up at Molly's in Soulard in St. Louis, Missouri, and they were closed, so we ended up at a different bar. And then Blake said he would meet us. But an interesting fact about Blake is, one of the first podcasts that I ever wanted to do was with Blake. So I'm glad to have him on today because we had initially started, before Matt and I started the internship podcast, which you can still find on Spotify and Apple and iTunes.
Subscribe to that shit.
Yeah, you might as well subscribe, give 5 stars. We started when we started in your living room, we bought these like shitty ass microphones and we started the business idea breakdown.
Yeah.
And that was what did we talk about there, Blake?
Yeah, you basically would. I mean,
I would spit an idea.
Most of our interactions have always been where you text me some business idea and then I shoot holes in it immediately.
Because
so
Blake's naturally
I'm naturally cynical.
a skeptic.
Yeah. So a lot of our interactions have always been like you give me a business idea and I always try to shoot holes into it. So you were like, we should make a podcast out of this, and we did, and it turned out actually pretty well. The first couple times that we did it, we never like followed through. I think
tough.
life got in the way. Like we ended up like not having enough time to actually like record and stuff. And you were just too lazy to come to Illinois as well.
Well, he lived 30 minutes away, 40 minutes away. It's like, fuck, I ain't driving you every time. I bought these like cheap-ass microphones. But I was also nervous to talk in front of your wife.
Yeah, you were super
at the
weird
time.
about talking in front of my wife, which I don't know what that was about. Like we have to have a freaking studio.
I didn't want judgment.
Dan, if you've ever listened,
My wife had to go sit in the basement.
Dan's
for him to like
definitely
fucking
afraid
talk.
of public speaking. So
It's-
he's gotten better, but like no, it's like if he doesn't know who the people are in the room,
Yeah,
it's like his voice starts cracking.
yeah.
He starts trembling.
So yeah, we had like a table set up in my dining room, and like they were decent microphones.
I mean, they weren't these microphones, but they were.
No.
They were okay.
They were
They were
decent.
$150.
And it's like we were just sitting there like going off and everything, and then my wife would walk by, and then like Dan would be like, oh, I can't do this. There's like some bullshit like that. It's like, dude, are you serious right now? Like so it got to the point where it was like, all right.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
You're kind of a pussy when it comes to that stuff.
So yeah.
I think I'm better now.
You are. Yeah, you talked in front of our bros in business.
Yeah, I did. So, but anyway, so it's exciting to have Blake on. Obviously, he was day drinking with me today.
So here's the first question.
Yes.
How many drinks did you guys have? And I'm asking that because Bill is Dan's manager, recruitment manager for him, and Bill was shithoused. Bill was trying to tell me a story, and I got to the point where I just had to start like nodding along because I know who he was fucking talking about.
Did he come back to the office?
Yeah. Oh, your whole team had their shit there. Your laptop's still there.
I know. So
they left about an hour before we came here.
Yeah. So it was right before I left for the podcast.
We got more
they
drinks.
got back.
I think we had 4 or 5 shots.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then in addition, 4 or 5, maybe 6 beers.
4 or 5, maybe 6 beers. So you're talking about 10.
But I don't normally drink.
Right.
So it's like,
I mean, that's a good amount for anybody.
I do, so I'm stone sober right now.
I get your fucking buzz going for sure.
Yeah. So, but I still wanted to make the commitment to the podcast.
Yeah. Chances are Brad just fucking bailed as soon as you said in the text, I'm drunk.
I'm fucked up.
Yeah, I'm fucked up.
Which is fair. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. But we're trying for consistency in 2022. And so what do we have today?
So let's look into
reflection.
Do you guys have any quotes?
I literally just came here.
So I'll go. We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. And I think that's a good one. I think experiences obviously can shape us, but the way in which they shape us is how we take a look at those experiences and how we decide to act from those experiences. So I like that one. So, well, let's just look into, in terms of reflection, what are the big things that you're reflecting on as we come to the end of the year? Dan, what are you reflecting on?
I mean, I think that if I look back, and now is a great time to audit. And we've talked about audit so many fucking times on our podcast, right? But I think that now I'm looking at, what's important to me. Things have changed. I've achieved some goals for me personally that is okay, cool. You hit that goal. And literally, it's 5 to 10 minutes of, holy shit, I hit that goal. And now, at the end of the day, it's okay, well, what's next? And it's a reflection point of all the things that I've done. And I'm very grateful for where I started to where I am today. But at the same time, I think it's a great time to start auditing where you're at. And so that's where I'm at with my business. And I almost, it's not even that it's almost that I'm at a point where I'm not as, money always motivated me, and I'm still money motivated, but I'm more motivated by skill sets that I can develop to help other people's make money at this point. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
So it's a leadership, and it's auditing where my team is at and what their goals are. And Matt, I know that you've had some discussions with your team with, what's important to you? What are your motivators? How do I help you hit your goals? And helping other people at this point of my life is more important. And so that's the reflection point for me of how do I do that? And how do I get better at helping other people achieve their goals? And so I guess I'll start with that. And
yeah. So I think reflection is it's interesting we come across that, because now the more you talk, the more I'm looking at I have been doing a lot of reflection, especially over this past month, for what I want to do in 2022 and on in every area of my life. I think I've even been reading a book called The Darkside of the Light Chasers, which has a lot of self-reflection in there, but also I've been reaching out to other people, because in that book it kind of talks about okay, you see yourself, but you can also lie to yourself in a lot of ways. And so it's a good chance to ask other people what they think of you, what they like, what they don't like, and it's the people closest to you, and to be as brutally honest as possible on both the good and the bad things, so you can start to become better. So reflecting on that, because we talked about this in the goals episode. My number one goal is not money, which is the first time ever. My number one goal is working on myself, working on just becoming kind of what you were talking about, working on having more of an impact on people's lives, because I know if I can work on that and be super excited about solving problems, not only for my team, but for our clients, that I know the money's going to fucking come, and it's only going to continue to pour in. So
yeah. And I'm sure, Blake, obviously, personally, you've been through some things over the last year where you've been able to reflect. And so I'm sure your goals have changed in terms of what you look forward to next year, 3 years, or 5 years, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, this past year has been pretty rough for me, but I don't know. My whole thing is I guess whenever I get hurt or betrayed, that always causes me to try to look back and improve myself even more. I guess the best revenge is success in my mind. And
I think we all have that mindset.
That's always been my mindset. And I probably wouldn't be here today if that wasn't my mindset. back when I was very young, I was like betrayed. My dad ended up like just kind of leaving me to my grandparents when I was 13, and ever since then I had this kind of like chip on my shoulder, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was always kind of like, I'm always gonna do better than you. Like, I'm always gonna one up you. Like, just wait and see. And I did. And so I got to that point, and then this past year, some stuff happened. Like I have 2 children, and I've been married for 7 years. And I found out like my wife was planning on leaving me, and she was gonna her parents like have a lot of money, so they were gonna back this whole big divorce and like character assassinate me and like really try to take me to the cleaners. And that was rough. Like, it was like a whole thing, like the past 6 months has been really shitty for me. But it's just like back when I was 13. It's like, you betray me or like you like shit on me, like I'm gonna come out on top.
Yeah.
And that's always how I've lived my life.
Yeah, and
so
I think that
yeah, so like she, we've been through like a lot, and the last couple months has been very tough for me, but I'll come out on top as per usual.
For sure. And I love that, because I think everybody in this room has faced adversity in some way and has been considered an underdog, or like has that chip on their shoulder. And when we interviewed Andy Frisella, it was like, well, that's the dark side shit, right? But that shit works, right? Because it's like, that's the dark side. Like, I'm going to show these motherfuckers, fuck them. I'm going to show them that I'm, capable of doing so much more, and that I'm not a piece of shit and all these things. And I think that every single person in this room today, especially today, has that mindset, and you're able to reflect on that. Now it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take that motivation and I'm going to apply it to next year in 2022 and get after it and show everybody like, hey, I wasn't a piece of shit, and so I think for me, I also have always had that mindset of like proving motherfuckers wrong. And I always talk about a story, which I'm not going to talk about because it's fairly personal, but there's somebody, that's a family member that it's like told me I couldn't have something, or somebody that told me I couldn't do something, and now I have it, but they won't come to me and be like, you know what? I fucking said that you couldn't do this, or you weren't going to do this, or you weren't capable of this, and then you did it, and then, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's all sometimes I look for with that. And with that reflection, I think that you look back of like, okay, I have all this shit going on. I have all these people betting against me, but I'm going to come out on top. And I think that's a great motivator going into 2022.
Yeah. I mean, first off, I appreciate you being super honest and transparent. We've all been pretty honest and transparent on this episode, and, we've all been in vulnerable stages. We've all been through shitty times. I fucking know for a fact it's like one of the main drivers for me to start my own business and pull the trigger was getting fired by a company. Like, I think about that all the time, and a lot of times I'm like, but it is the best thing that ever happened to me, right? Because I probably would have been working some corporate staffing mid-level job or whatever and been fine, but that sparked the motivator for me to be like, fuck them, right? And now I want to sit here and say like, oh, I want to be, I want to take the higher road, right? And it was a great thing that happened, like, and everybody's got good intentions, but like, realistically, there's a lot of times I'm like, fuck them. I want to be a better agency than them. I want to be, you know what I mean? 100%. So it's like, it's a good motivator, especially starting out, right? I agree 100% with you. I think the best revenge is success. But more importantly, the best revenge is becoming a better person, right?
Yeah.
Like growing yourself in general. Because I know that's what I've done. And then it's like trying to, for me, again, I don't know what the fuck's going on in your case, but like in my case, it's like I try to be a little bit more mature than I was at that stage. But again, to start a fire under your ass, to become better, it's like there's nothing fucking wrong with using anger.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because I think that, like, for me, so there's this one situation where I was working corporate before I started my business. I always wanted to start a business, even from when I was young, whatever, right? I can have all the cliche bullshit stories, but there was one instance where I had a VP. He comes in, he's 34 years old. He's a SVP of recruitment, talent acquisition, whatever, HR. And he comes to me and he says, hey, Dan, like, great year, the thing is you're a B player and we want to get you to an A player, and that's why we can't necessarily give you a raise this year, but you're a B player and we appreciate you. We're going to get you there, right? And so every single fucking day I see his name on fucking LinkedIn, I literally just want to send him a message and be like, hey, dude, thanks for fucking telling me I was a B player. Now I make more money than you, and I appreciate you for doing that because it pushed me to start my own shit. And I don't do it. I will do it at some point when I'm more mature, maybe, with my words. But I think that hopefully one day with the reflection, we can all go back and we can, and I'll see TikToks and I'll see Instagram posts and all these things of like, oh, this guy broke up with me and I lost 150 pounds. Or, oh, this happened to me and I changed my life this way. It's like, hopefully one day all of us can go back to it and thank those people for putting that into our minds, because honestly, they did us a fucking favor.
Yeah. I've actually come to become friends with my father after a long time. Like, there was a period of like 7 or 8 years to where I wasn't even in contact with my father because of the, he basically kicked me out of the house when I was a child, and I went to live with my grandparents. So we really didn't have any contact or anything. Now that I'm an older person and like I've learned that that's actually bettered me as a person. I mean, I'm sure he didn't mean to better me as a person. Like that was kind of just like a shitty move like back in the day, but looking back on it, it's bettered me as a person. So now I'm just kind of like, I'm cool with it and I've forgiven him for that. And so like now we're cool. And I think eventually, this divorce is still new, and we're still like in the stages where we are like very shitty with each other, I guess. But I think after a year or two, I will probably thank her for making me a better person, because I will probably come out of this in the positive.
Yeah. And
I think that's a growth mindset. Right?
It is, because I was literally just going to say it's a growth mindset, because there are, whenever shitty circumstances arise that are out of your control in anyone's life, there's two options, right? It's to sit down and just like bitch and like let your life become shittier and just say that it's like you were a product of a circumstance that somebody else created, or you can move forward and you can use it as basically you can use it to leverage yourself into just being a better person and growing in any area of life. We talked about this a couple podcasts ago, where it's like all the shittiest things that have ever happened to me, for the most part, turned out to be the fucking best things, even though they were shitty for quite some time before. It's like that developed into how it was better, Yeah.
Well, that's how I look at negative situations as a whole nowadays, where it's like, fuck, dude, I'm going through some shit. But oh, wait, every time I've gone through shit in my life, like I look back at that shit and I'm like, thank God that shit happened.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about this, like literally I was fucking driving this week and I was like, everything that's happened to me in my life have brought me to this point. It's brought me to the relationships that I have. It's brought me to the financial situation that I've had. It's brought me to literally everything in my life. And if all that shit didn't happen, would I be motivated to move in this direction? Would I be motivated to move in that direction? Would I have chosen this? Would I have chosen that? And so now you have all these relationships. Like I may never met Matt. I may have reconnected with Brad because we went to high school together. I may have not, you know what I mean? It's like all these different things that have happened because of things that, basically instances in your existence, right?
Yeah.
And so looking back, everybody who has listened to the first podcast, which weren't as great, but, the story was like, holy fuck, I can't afford bills, $600. I got to go cry. I literally cried in front of my mom and asked her for money. And it was like, you know what? At the time, that was the worst feeling in the fucking world, is to admit that I was a failure as a man, as a husband, as a father. And now I look back and I'm like, I can tell that story. I used to tell that story and fucking cry from telling that fucking story, but it's really what shaped like my motivation moving forward, and I'll never be in that situation again. So I think that everybody has a situation, you know what I mean? It's like not just my situation, but I think everybody has something that they can point to.
100%. So that being said, it's like throughout 2021, when you reflect on what's happened throughout business, through your personal life, what are the biggest changes that you feel like you've made?
I mean, changes. So first I want to address like, okay, I think the relationships that I've developed over the last year are extremely important for the long term, with employees that I have, from a company culture standpoint, from a foundation standpoint of being able to scale, things like that. Like that's one thing. The other thing that I've realized is like, okay, I always wanted I always wanted this or I always wanted that. And now I can have all that. And it doesn't really change what the fuck. You know what I mean?
Dude.
Like you think you want this shit and you get it and it's a small win over a short period of time and it fucks you up because you're like, damn, dude, I just worked all these years and this is always what I wanted and I manifested and I made it happen and then boom. And it's like, this shit doesn't matter. What really matters is the relationships in your life and then the like continuance of like getting better at your craft or
getting better as a person. Yeah. So it's hilarious. I talked to a guy who threw me a quote that resonated with me big time today. His name's Mike Kitko, and he's a coach here in St. Louis. Really good guy. He said, thoughts and feelings create new circumstances. So new circumstances don't create new thoughts and feelings, right? So it's like if it's a house, if it's the lake house, if it's the car, if it's whatever, it's like that getting those things isn't going to change things about you. It's the thoughts and the feelings that you create while you grow that can create those fucking circumstances.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So it goes to show you, right? It's like, it's not about the goal of getting the car, the house, the fucking money or whatever. It's the journey about like, okay, I'm becoming the person that fucking deserves this stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's fucked up whenever you get it and you're like, holy shit, I just achieved a dream. And you're like, oh, wait a second. Like, okay, whatever. Now I got this fucking house that I don't know if it's burned down or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now I got a problem.
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I guess that's my answer in terms of 2021 positive, what I can look at. You got anything, Blake?
For what I can look back on, I mean,
I know it's been a rough.
my year's been rough as fuck.
So why don't we do this? Now that you've gotten you've done a little bit of reflection. Obviously, you've had to think about some shitty stuff that's happened to you this past year. I know we're running a little bit on time, so I would say my last question for us is like, now that we've looked back and seen that what we've done over this past year, how are we going to use that to move forward? What are the areas that you're going to focus on? And what are the areas that you really want to change in come 2022 or get better as a person?
In terms of what I want to change, and Matt, I know you're doing some reflection right now. I'm like seeing what other people's thoughts are, positive and negative with you. And I think that for me, now that I'm not as money motivated and I'm more purpose driven, I really want to see other people succeed. And so it's like, how do I help other people succeed? How do I help from a leadership perspective? And I think that for me, my focus is like just genuinely helping people that are trying their best and want to grow, and I think that that's my goal for this year. I got to make a certain nut to cover my bills, but outside of that, like I'm literally pouring everything back in at this point. Like I'm not trying to make trying to make a fuck ton of money, but not for me personally. I'm trying to throw that back to other people at this point. So
nice.
Well, I'm trying to do better financially. Honestly, just like, I guess with the divorce and everything, I'm not going to get into it, but like I took a big financial blow last year, and I'm gonna take that in stride and do 10 times better than I was doing before. So that's kind of my goal right now. And in my opinion, like better finances is going to provide me more flexibility to see my children too. So that's a big motivator for me. So
Nice.
What about you, Matt?
I think the biggest thing, and I don't know if I talked about this in the goals podcast, but the relationship with myself is a big one that I'm going to be focusing on. And it's more about like, okay, I've done the extremes. Like I've done like 75 hard, which I'm still going to complete that program and I'm excited about. I've also been a fucking piece of shit that's like going out and just getting, get drunk on shit face on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, eat like shit, sleep like shit, binge on Netflix, not do anything. So I think it's more finding my like comfortable ground and not being so hard on myself whenever I don't like achieve perfection in every area. Most likely that's probably the biggest thing I'm going to be focused on in 2022.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's so many little things that you want to work on. There's, empathy and things like that I think that are important with other people, because a lot of times it's been like, well, fuck, I'm on my own.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, fuck, like nobody helped me. You know what I mean? It's like, if I can do it, nobody else can do it. But the reality is that like somebody was helping us through the fucking storm. Right.
Yep.
And so if I can find the people that really truly care and are trying and things like that, like my goal is to try to, throw out my hand and help them through that. So I think that's the 2022 goal for me.
Yeah, I think this is a good, this will actually be our last episode of the year, which will turn out to be the first episode of the year once it airs. But it's a good idea that you should reflect, do regular reflection on everything. Audit your body, your relationships, your fucking, every habit that you want to make better, your business, your finances, all the above. Because when you reflect, you can have a better understanding of where you want to go and how you want to build on that. So that being said, I guess we'll close out. We appreciate you guys for listening. If you like us, subscribe, share, do all the things that
things that make us more popular.
That make us big in Sweden. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep. But we appreciate you guys. And we will talk to you next year. Deuces.
Good dad joke.